I'm all the way from Pretoria. I'm Andisiwe. Whichever name you prefer, it doesn't really matter. So Candice, Andisiwe, it doesn't matter. As mentioned, that I'm homegrown in Alexandra Township, but also live in Pretoria because I study there. I live with my mom and my little brother, and in my studies, done a BA degree in psychology, and I'm currently doing my honours in development studies at the University of Pretoria. So I'm hoping we're going to have a great session today. I won't be nervous. But please just nod, even if I'm not on the right track, just to encourage me. But just to give you guys an idea of how I've structured the presentation, is that I've broken it down to 3 segments. So the first section will be just giving you guys an overview of what the Building Blocks Foundation is, which is an organization that I started, and then just telling you more about how it works, who's involved, etc. And then secondly will be the importance of participatory development, and in that I'll touch on the importance of community engagement and partnership, and also gendering participation, which is a very important aspect to it, and also sharing on what has worked or working on the project. So I hope you guys will enjoy, and I think the last 20 minutes of the session, just so if you have any questions that you want to ask, just park them and I'll clarify or answer them in the last session. So the Building Blocks Foundation is a non-profit organization which I started, and it's currently pioneered by 4 young people from Alexandra Township. So it's a sanitation organization which seeks to improve sanitation conditions in Alexandra Township, mainly by eradicating the use of your bucket toilets and then replacing them with proper flush toilets. So the initiative started in 2012, back in my area where I come from, and I started it as a pilot project in my community. And just to give you guys are you guys all from around? No. Do you guys know? What? Really? Okay, so for those who don't know Alex, so just to paint a picture, Alex is I think it's 103 years this year, so it's ironically one of the oldest townships in South Africa, but yet one of the most underdeveloped. It was proclaimed like a native township in 1912, so meaning it was reserved for black people. So it was basically a landing zone for black people coming from all parts of South Africa, coming to seek for work opportunities in Johannesburg. And ever since then, the numbers have grown. And I mean, it was initially capacitated for around 30,000, so the infrastructure was capacitated for that small number, but the number today is estimated to be about 840,000. I think it's a lot more than that. But you can see that you can imagine that there's a lot of overcrowding, very limited space to move and develop. So I come from one of those areas, and in my where I come from is basically a yard which has around more than 50 households. So in that yard we share a communal toilet and different facilities. In contrast to that, I went to a Waverley Girls High School, which is your Model C school, where most of the kids that came from those schools were from your middle income backgrounds, where they had access to more decent household, more decent facilities. And I sort of had to come into that world and sort of surround myself with that influence and get myself orientated in that environment. However, going back home, it was a totally different story, where I had to queue on the side of the road every time I needed to use the bathroom, or just being subjected to very undignified facilities. So I think growing up, I had to sort of fit myself in both those worlds, and it was it was a juxtaposed upbringing, and it sort of forced me into looking myself through the eyes of others, which in a way crippled my self-esteem, crippled my self-worth, and so on. However, in growing up, we have different influences from different people. So as a direct result of my personal lived experience, and also due to lack of service delivery in our community, I then started the initiative Building Blocks, and that's when I started with the building of the toilet in my area, and I'll explain to you how it works later. So Yeah, so just to explain how the project works. So as I've said that in 2012 I started it in my area, but in realizing that this story is not unique to me, it's not unique to Alex, I think it's a shared narrative that rings truth to most, particularly Black South Africans. So I felt the need to actually expand it to other areas. So in 2013 we built, together with 3 of my other friends, we decided that we're going to expand it to like different parts of Alexandria, and we've been building toilets ever since then. So how the project works is that in most cases, initially we'd identify areas with like your bucket toilet, but in realizing that it's not just there's a lot of areas actually without any existing toilets at all, where people are forced to go to the mall and pay to actually use the bathroom, or walk longer distance to go to the bathroom to use the bathroom. Or there are some existing flush toilets but have been built like many years ago and not functioning. So we identify those 3 areas. So we identify and work with those 3 areas, and in most cases we would identify those areas. But because we've also grown our name within the community, we often have people calling us and asking us that we can work together with them. And then second to that is that we would have to introduce ourselves as a project too. So we have to like have a communal meeting where we introduce ourselves, who we are, why, explain the nature of the relationship and why we would like to, work with the communities. And then if the community, agrees in working with us, then they'll need to sort of sign a petition saying that they're committing to work with us. And that's where we also gather, the demographics on how many people live in those households, are there any physically challenged people within those areas, and so forth. So those are the different things that we look into. Yeah. Oh, shit. Okay. It's, I don't know. No. Okay, let's see.
Sorry, is it not working?
Yeah. Oh no. Sound issue?
No. This.
What is that? Is it photos or?
No, it just wasn't reading. Maybe it lost the signal.
Okay. You didn't see this. Okay, so this is Alex. You didn't see this. Yeah, that's Alex. That's Santon. That's, yeah.
Is that all JSTV now?
Yeah. Yeah. So these are the toilets for those who don't know. So these are the chemical potable toilets. Yeah. Okay. So so after like the community had sort of had confirmed that they would like. Sorry.
I just want to know the toilets, is it just like a certain section? Because I have something similar like that in my community. Is it just a certain section? Is it the whole area?
It's a whole like area. It's all over Alex. Yeah. Okay. So it's so after like the community has sort of confirm that they would like to work with us, then they're expected to actually contribute like a certain amount, and I'll explain later why is it important for them to contribute. So you have to contribute financially and also contribute with the labor, so the skills in the community that we have. And I must mention that we also during the community meetings, the community is expected to sort of elect a leader, someone who will sort of be responsible in sort of liaising with us as an organization. Also expect to collect the money, because we are an external body, so I think money is a very sensitive issue when it comes to like this. So it's important that they actually have someone that they can trust who will collect that money, and then we only come when we need to purchase the material and so forth. So we don't keep the money on us, and it's very important that is the fact, because to build on trust and also on the partnership, I think it works better that way. Okay, so these are the toilets that we've built. So we have some areas would have like five toilets. It all depends on the number of people in that area. Also the amount of space that is available in that area. So you'd see that in some areas it's 2, and some areas it's 3. So it all varies depending on the number of people and space available to build. Can I? Yeah. Okay. So and then subsequent to the building of the toilets, we also run sanitation workshops. So in those communities, after they've build the toilets, we run sanitation workshops, and the importance of those sanitation workshops is that we also raise an awareness on the importance of hygiene, and it's also a space where they get to sort of engage on pressing issues within their communities, and also draw up cleaning rosters and the rules that they need to adhere to in terms of using the toilets. So it's just a space where they can also just celebrate the completion of the project, but the most important part is that they get to engage on really pressing issues within the community. Okay. I've got a video for you, just to give you guys an idea of. Okay, where do I? Please come.
I just unplugged it and plugged it back in, so I think the signal just takes a while too. Sorry, I'm not sure why. I think it's like there's something in the setup that only wants
What is life? Okay, so what I normally do, is it because of the video or?
Yeah,
it's because we exited the slideshow presentation.
Oh, I see, okay. So let's see if we can full screen it to see if it's up on here. No. Sorry about that. More interface. Oh, that's super weird. Is there a way that like
Jay, this morning, I didn't have a problem this morning.
No. Yeah. Super strange. What's happening this way?
Okay.
There we go.
How did you do that?
I just moved it to the side. So we'll start that again. There should be. Okay. There should be since it's HDMI. So let's see if we can hear that. If not, I truly apologize for the lack of sound. I'm trying in my life, fam. So, okay, I apologize for the lack of sound. There seems to be no sound, even though there's an HDMI cable.
There could be a problem with the video.
Is there a YouTube
I
thing?
think the sound, the sound is dangerous.
Do we have an aux cable? Let's give that a better. I don't think that it's a problem with the fact that we can't. It's not like because it should be playing with HDMI.
Yeah, I should. Okay. Is the same video on YouTube? No.
Okay, but we can send it to them then. But it's fine. Is it okay? Okay.
Yeah.
Deep apologies. Now I can't find the browser. Why are you so glitchy? Oh, here we go. Okay. There we go. Okay. Apologies once again.
Okay, sorry about that. So we'll have to skip the video. But yeah, so I just wanted to, the video is basically more like things in action. So people during the sanitation workshops, during the building and the construction process. Okay, so I actually found this on Facebook, and I found it very relevant to what I'm talking about today. Yeah, but basically, this is, I think, to put it in context, is basically how people can make, if you don't sort of consult people on their basic needs, they can actually, it's very important to actually consult people and engage people on what is it that they need in their communities. As you can see, anyone from Hammanskraal, no one? No. Yeah. But basically, this is how people can make a project inefficient if they're not consulted. And I think it speaks to the heart of, what Building Blocks is about. The whole idea is about, participatory development. I think for me, how I, define that is about, engaging people, ensuring that people are sort of, participating and are sort of influence the, decisions, the whatever happens in the project. And I think for me, it's a very important aspect because one, it instills a sense of ownership that, you have participated, you've put in the sweat, that's, something to work, you've put in your money, you've put in your effort. Therefore, you feel that, responsibility to actually look after it than say someone just giving it to you. So the whole idea is to instill a sense of ownership. Hence, we, emphasize that they need to contribute, through their effort and their money, that they put in the sweat, therefore they will look after it. And we've seen it that they actually take better care of the toilets and they take so much pride in those toilets because it's theirs, they've put in the effort that is needed. And also, I think it's a very empowering tool that you are in the forefront of, of the project that you lead. You are sort of involved in, in your own development. And I think for me, central to we say that with Building Blocks, it's about restoring dignity through sanitation. And another aspect of sanitation for me is having a sense of agency, having a say in whatever happens in, in whatever project or in your own development. So that in its sense is a very sustainable approach, and you have that sense of accountability to look after your own development. So I'm just going to make example of 2 case studies that that I think sort of could have worked, that the intention was good, but then it didn't really work because of the lack of participation of people on the ground. And one such an example is that of the Ujamaa. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Tanzanian history, but Ujamaa basically means the coming together, and it was a developmental approach that was introduced by Julius Nyerere. And I mean, he was a socialist at heart. His idea was creating this cluster society, equality, people live together. So he settled people into little villages. So his idea was that people should, clustering people into those villages so that they can work together, produce, through agricultural means, and live together as a community. So his philosophy was based on 3 essential things, which is enhancing freedom, equality, and unity amongst the people. And also he encouraged self-reliance and independence, that people don't have to rely on external bodies for their own development. They have the resources there. They should make things work by themselves and not wait for other people, external institutions to provide aid or whatsoever. His way was basically integrating an African way of life and values, and going back to that agricultural mode of production, and building the economy based on that. However good his intention, and I can see the bigger picture, his ideology, and a quote by James Scott says, "If people find the new arrangement, however efficient in principle, to be hostile to their dignity, their plans, their taste, they can make it an inefficient arrangement." And we see it even with the people from Tanzania, that first of all, he in his approach, he didn't consider the ecological considerations. He just moved people into villages and didn't consider that those land that he's moving those people is not fertile for production. Another aspect, which is a very important one, he didn't pay attention to local knowledge and practices of cultivators. So he had this big idea and sort of imposed, and it's said that he used military force to actually move people into those villages, and people had their own way of living. They had already established way of life, and now you're gonna come as this big man. Yes, we admire you, but you can't now just tell us what to do and actually not consulting us or engaging us on your plan. So he marginalized voices even in his approach, and stripped people of their dignity. As I've mentioned, that they, even in those, they were used to living in those, scattered villages, and had the whole life there. They buried their families there, and now moving them to a new area, it's like stripping them of their dignity. So they made it sure that the whole system was inefficient because they were not consulted, they were not engaged in that process. And I think just to take it back home, a report by Human Rights Commission to access sufficient water and sanitation in South Africa reports that certain communities have expressed unhappiness at the lack of access to information and participation of residents in development of policy and decision making on service delivery. And we've seen it. I don't know, you guys remember, the pota system, so it was basically the possible flush toilet, which sparked outrage in Khayelitsha, and it had people very angry. Basically, they were saying shit, where you eat, those toilets were like that, and they were very undignified. So, and they just received a letter just informing them of these introduction of these new toilets, and so there was no consultation. So it was just a top-up approach. And I think one of the things that we sort of it's an area that we do, especially as your government organization or researchers or experts, that we think we have taken the time to actually learn about these new innovative ideas, however good it might be, that might be good for the environment. We have painstakingly taken the time to learn about these things, how efficient it is, but how do you expect people to know of how, of the intention of how good it is without actually engaging them and actually, that it's good to have these innovative ideas, but if people don't understand them and the intention, people are not going to embrace. I mean, I know I wouldn't, open up, to something I don't fully understand. And I think that's what we see even with, with these toilets, that you introduce something and you say it's an innovative idea, but do people on the ground understand the intention, the bigger picture? And I think it's very important for you to engage and also consult people in that case. And I mean, hence we saw a lot of resistance to those toilets in a sense. So I think for me, the best innovation, a friend of mine once said that the best innovation is not worth anything if it's not implemented with the support of the people on the ground. So I think it's very important that we engage people, that even in those solutions, that they are engaged and that, they are involved in the coming up of solutions in their communities. So for me, a significant positive change is one that is inclusive, not only meaningful to the initiators of the project, but one that is meaningful to the individual beneficiaries of those projects. And then touching on another aspect of participation, and I think it does, even with the participatory approach, it does have its limitation, and there has been some criticism on that. And I think one of those limitation, or rather things that it didn't, doesn't sort of address, is one of gender as well. That even in our, engagement and in our participation, it's often that you'd have the dominant voice is your man. And also reports by the human rights say that one of the major findings was the lack of awareness at municipal level of gender policies and legislation, leading to ineffective or non-existent implementation of such frameworks. That even in our local municipalities who are sort of involved in execution of project or implementation, they also lack that gender awareness. So it means that it leaves some people out into the whole picture, So, and I think for me it's very important, because I see it come to play even in our project, that as much as we adapt, we follow this participatory approach, however, you see that the main voices would be your main dominant voices. So the participatory decisions can actually reinforce the interests of the already powerful, that the male actually have the dominant voice. They are the ones who are elected as leaders. They are the ones, even in our, as I mentioned, that in our sanitation workshops, we get them to sort of compile cleaning rosters. That is usually reserved for the women. And they're like, no, men are not supposed to be cleaning, So you get those gender dynamics even in those communities. And I mean, it's quite difficult, because now I also come like as say. I'd be often told that, you coming with your 21st, century, and I think it becomes a very generational thing that, I'm going to come there and say that, okay, this is be inclusive, but now, like, okay, you just, modern girl, this is our way of life. So those are the dynamics that, you have to put into perspective, that even you guys as, future, community practitioners or having NGOs, that you should put those into perspective, that how do you actually engage and ensure that it's an inclusive, that you don't leave people out inside in the whole picture. And also a very intersectional approach into the project as well, is that who are the people in this community? I think it's very important that you ask yourself, who are the people, who are you serving in those communities? What are the divisions in those communities? And who is your project leaving out? Because I think it's something that we also come across, that even, and we actually avoid having those gender binary toilets, that it's for female and male, and because we've had instances where you have your gay people or other homosexuals in those communities, and we trying to sort of also, it's a mindset change thing, that we don't reproduce those gender binaries, that we just make them neutral toilets where male and female can actually use both those toilets. So it's also something that you need to look into perspective. And I think even in the process of like them contributing financially, we also bear in mind that some people actually don't have money to contribute. So how do we look at ways that we don't actually leave them out? So it's very important that you unpack those different dimensions to it and ensure that you don't leave certain people out in those communities. And then lastly, just creating spaces for dialogue and reflection. So in our workshops, we ensure that people sort of we encourage people to sort of talk about these issues, that it doesn't become like us telling them this is the way to go, but just asking them questions where they can reflect and think, about these things, that we don't have the answers, but then rather, guide them in sort of getting, or rather making them aware of these dynamics within our communities. And then lastly, what has worked for us? I think for me, what has worked for us is, as I've said, like, one of the things that we pride ourselves in is that community involvement has been one of the biggest achievements. Getting people to work together towards a common goal has been one of our achievements, and one of the things that have worked, because I think it's a very sustainable approach, especially in terms of maintaining the toilets and keeping them clean and ensuring that those toilets, if there's a blockage, that they feel responsible to actually do it themselves. So in terms of building and that sustainability, getting the community involved in the whole process has proved to work. And also transparency, in terms of building relations within the community. I think it's very important that you are transparent to them, that you don't just hide things away from them, because as I've said, that we come as an external body, so it's very important that we are open, especially when it comes to things about money, that we don't keep the money to us, because people have there's just been a lot of scams, and people are not very guarding of their money. So it's very important that we build that trust, and we are basically transparent in our approach. And then also electing community leaders has also proved to be something that that works, because as I've said, that some of there's a lot of politics within the community, and I think it would be unjust for us to say that, okay, we have all the solutions, but rather having someone that they actually look up to sort of guide them and facilitate that whole, process of coming up with solutions, because, that there's different situations, and people, relate to each other differently. So it's important to actually elect someone within that community who is able to sort of lead people towards a common direction. And engaging people, as I've said in our workshops, just talking about whatever pressing issues that's on hand. And I think that's it. Okay.
So where does the funding for the toilets come from?
Okay, so partly it's community. So we have an organized, it's a company called JTI. So firstly, at first it was just individuals, contributing, but we've managed to have for 3 years now, they've sort of partnered with us in terms of funding the project.
And so just to kind of follow up, is there government funding at all? Because sanitation is
No, we haven't had any funding from. We have made attempts of approaching the government, and they were put to shame and stuff like that, and we're embarrassed. But that was it. There was no follow through in terms of working together with us. So it's
very wonderful work.
Thanks.
Me.
Yeah.
So I just a few things that I want to say. First of all, I must say, I admire or I truly respect the partnership approach that you have, because I think it's very important when we're passionate about certain issues within communities, and sometimes that passion is then construed in a manner which can then be perceived as imposing. And I think that's the value of a lived experience. And I must say, I love the fact that you have a lived experience and you channeled that lived experience into doing something about it. And in doing so, you have other people who have the same or similar lived experience. I don't think that your experience would be the same as a man, because there's also the issue that you're a woman and therefore your sanitation needs are different. So, but you have people who have a similar lived experience, but collectively they're leading their own struggle. And I think that's amazingly beautiful when you have a project where it's the people who have the lived experience who are leading it. So you're not coming there with your own perceived ideas of what the issue is, I mean, there are people within that community who know what the issue is. And sometimes I feel like, especially with us young people, we tend to think that we know everything. And we tend to think that our socialization is greater than members of the community who may not have been exposed to our education, to the spaces that we inhabit. So I think it's so crucial that you identify the amount of wealth that lies within the community itself. In terms of knowledge, in terms of labor, in terms of accounting, managing money. So, and also the other thing of like the intersectional approach. I mean, just yesterday we had a session on disability, and I love that you mentioned that you recognize that there are people with disabilities within the community. So therefore, it's not really it's not an ableist project. You know, you understand that there are intersectionalities within not having sanitation, and then you try to address all those intersections as best as any feminist, black feminist could. And also the other thing is the non-binary toilets. I must say I love that because it's so important to have non-binary toilets, because I mean then you're not reinforcing the whole gender binaries, and of course you're making it an open space and a safe space for people within our community who may be trans, people who may be gay, people who may be lesbian. So you're making that space, and then also by doing so, you are manifesting a deconstruction of ideologies by having gender neutral bottoms.
Yeah, I think that you touched on a very important, and I think it's also something that I realized in working on the project, that we often, there's this thing that, people in our community are entitled, they're just waiting for the government and stuff. But I think I realized that, people, when they have enabling systems, enabling ways, they're actually encouraged to actually, be part of their development. They're actually waiting because there are no systems in place to actually encourage, them to participate in their development. And I think it's a very crucial point that, we're just saying, they're just waiting for the government to do stuff for them. They're not. They just want a way to actually, a means where they can actually help themselves. And I think it's a very important aspect to it. Oh, sorry.
When you erect a toilet on a space, how do you identify that particular space? Is it erected on a person's yard, or you only identify a space and then erect a toilet?
Yeah, so the space, so the area that it has to be, it has to be with the bucket toilets. So those toilets, we would have to remove those. But also in some cases you have an open space. However, there has to be a connecting sewer line, because we can't just erect a toilet without a connecting sewer line. And that's usually, we work with the municipality, Johannesburg Water, and in some cases they'd come and check if there's a connecting sewer line nearby. So there has to be a connecting sewer line even in that open space.
So in a nutshell, you've been endorsed by a COJ.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Good morning.
Morning.
How are you? Okay. First comment. I think the idea of I don't know if it is non-gender binary or the issue of the toilets, where there is no specific male female. I think it's quite innovative all the time, and I see a future for it. I don't know how it will work and how long it will take. But as I'm sitting, I'm thinking, I think it's possible. It's not a big issue. I don't think there is a big, strong reason behind making male and female toilets. It's just a comment. And then now going forward about, because Elokshi, we live in, you know what I'm saying, you can understand from that space. Now, how do you, it's a wrong question, but how does a community go around in terms of making sure that the toilet is always clean, where you have a lot of people accessing the toilet? And more specifically, when you consider the fact that it's exposed also, not exposed as in it's there for everyone to use, and passerby might be not staying in the area, but so the toilet is there.
Yeah, actually, I forgot to mention that every household has a key, so those toilets are locked by So it's not open to everyone. So everyone who is in that community, who is involved in the project, has a key to the toilet. So they're all locked.
Oh, so because then the next person will be theft.
Yeah.
Okay, I think Asman raised the but I'll question after him.
Okay. Okay.
I think it's more so. Okay, so I think that the work that you're doing is excellent, and I don't want to sound like it's a critique, but I did a project on sanitation a little while ago, and there was this idea of dry toilets. So dry toilets, it's like supposed to be better for the environment, and of course I completely understand that. How do you propose a new technology in such an unequal society where the perception immediately will be that this is less dignified? So I think it's difficult to do that, but at the same time, if we want to be inclusive of voices, people speak about the environment as being the voiceless in the situation. So even if we manage to include women, trans, wherever it is, what about the environment, and how can we, I don't know if it would be possible to include that sort of narrative in the discussion of like, there is this new technology without trying to be like, academic about it or superior about it, but there is a new technology that is better for the environment, and would people be willing to engage with that?
Yeah, I think it's a very important point, because even with us, that there's like issues of lack of water, and it's something that we have been thinking about, that how do we actually come up with an alternative that instead of connecting to the main sewage system, how about we come up with an alternative? But as I've mentioned, that it's very important that you engage people on such issues, that we're not saying that we don't care about the environment. It's of course we do quite care about it, but it's important that you don't think that because you know that bigger picture, that people on the ground actually engage them and get them, because I think and as I said, it's like changing perception, and I think changing perception is it's a stage process. It has to go through a series of engagements and getting people to understand the crux of the bigger picture. So I think ideally it would be going down that stream where we have alternative, sanitary systems. But now, how do you ensure that you get people on the same boat in understanding the bigger picture? And I think it's very important that you include them and engage people on such issues.
So I probably didn't phrase my question as a question, but do you think it's possible in the engagement sessions you have to propose an idea which would be as, I suppose, revolutionary as that?
It's difficult, I would say, especially considering that it's, I think we've been socialized that, flush toilet is the ideal way, I'm not saying it's impossible, but I think it's like over time, because I think for me, there was an area which I visited in the Eastern Cape, where they have like that alternative toilet where it's you don't have to flush, and the system is basically separated into your urine and your feces, and I mean that separation actually ensures that it doesn't smell. And I think for me it was quite an interesting thing that people actually complain about smell a lot, with these chemical toilets, So I think it's about addressing those things, that those small components that are very close to the hearts of the people, that things like smell. Why is it an alternative? Why is it like a better alternative? Because it doesn't smell. Obviously, it's good for the environment. So I think it's not something that would people will be openly accepting of, but I think it will take having a pilot project in an area and show people that it has worked in this area and take it, because I think that's how we worked even in the project, that I started it in my area. People at first they were waiting that the municipality will give us the toilets. The whole idea of them being participation and them contributing is a whole mindset shift as well, So I think it takes you doing something and actually showing that it's worked in this area, and I think it's more believable then. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, I also like to comment on one question. How much is the contribution individuals play towards the toilet? And have you considered artisans as well?
Yeah. So the standard amount is 100 rands. So, I mean, initially in my area it was quite expensive because we had no support or funding. So it was 200 per household, which was a lot of money. But now it's just a standard amount of 100 rand per household. And then in terms of bathrooms, it would be not... It doesn't work for a place like Alex, you know, considering, as I said, there's over 50 households. And, I mean, I want to go to work, you know, and it won't work because even with the government, the flush toilets of the government, they have a toilet and a shower, and they've actually changed that shower into a storage, you know, that people don't need it, so it won't work. Sorry.
So, are there any relocations in Alex, or people are not moved out, like they will be there, will they be there permanently? Because I know in other areas there are relocations, and you should also consider the wastage. I don't know if it's waste, but it's a good work that you're doing. What I'm saying is that when people are being relocated to other places, so what is it that you're going to do with the structure? Let's see if there are any relocations.
Yeah, the issue of like relocation, it's a very, I don't see people being moved anytime soon, you know, and I mean that was also built out of that you know, we've been there for like 21 years waiting for, you know, houses and stuff, and people have sort of settled that okay, this is our home. But obviously there are hopes that they might be moved, but they will have to, if they move like a whole area, then they will have to demolish the whole area. But at the moment there are no hopes that they.
Hi.
Hello.
I also want to, I think your project's amazing. But I just have one sort of small question. Are there like dustbins in the bins for women's sanitary products as well?
No.
Is any, like,
Yeah, I think we don't have, we haven't really considered like having bins in those toilets. Mainly, and I think it's also like an issue that, you know, that some male wouldn't be comfortable with it, mainly because, I don't know for what reason, they're scared of blood, whatever. But we haven't really considered having like your sheep bins or anything like that. But it's something that worth considering, but it's not something we've looked into. So.
Sorry, I just wanted to, it's not a question, but it's just something that came up, particularly with what Aslam was saying about introducing the chemical toilets as a revolutionary concept, or it being more environmentally friendly. I just think that particularly where people have been living in conditions that sort of, where they were stripped of their idea of dignity, the flush toilet becomes a representation of that. And so when you want to come in, or when you suggest that, okay, here's a chemical toilet, and you know, it's revolutionary, it's great for the environment, it's a new thing, their first thing is to use it at home. Is that the one that you're using at home? You know, and then why are we then the guinea pigs for this project, right? It's that, okay, you know, so the whole question as well, try to say, okay, no, will they be open to, will they want to, you know, take on this thing of the bigger picture? Are you, though, you know? In as someone who has the ability to completely take out your own flush toilet and replace it with an eco-green, you know? So and that's why I think that it's very important what you're doing, not just from an environmentally friendly point of view, like, you know, redressing injustice of the past. It is a psychological thing, or a restoration of dignity to the community that it does, even with the problems that it does bring up about how, you know, bins for women's sanitary towels and toilets and whatever, that the symbolism of the flush toilet is bigger than just the convenience of having a toilet. So yeah, well, that.
No, thanks.
want to know if the toilets break, right? Do you have like a separate fund where you have money to just go fix to the fixing of the toilets? Because I can imagine a lot of people is using the toilets. So at the stage it's going to break, in whatever will break. So what are you doing in those circumstances?
So yeah, as I mentioned, that the whole thing is like self-sustainable. So they are actually expected to ensure that they fix it. So they feel they're actually responsible for looking after.
So would they like those families like 3 or 4 families are using the toilet? So would they like say okay, like have an agreement with each other, like maybe the toilet does break, I'll give this amount and that amount.
Yeah. So
because like I'm thinking they don't have money to spend on fixing stuff, and at times it does get expensive. So
yeah, no, I think it's something that they're expected to, because we can only do so much as well, like with the funding that we have. So they're actually responsible in terms of ensuring that the toilet is clean. And as I said, that in most cases, like because we use like people in those communities who have those skills, the plumbing skills, so they use the labor that is already there in those communities, but they are they are responsible in ensuring that
so
they're.
do you like helping this guy's plumber and like you actually even work like?
No, we don't tell. Like I think after the whole process of like the
like
construction.
In the community, like you just like in the community get together and they see who is.
Yeah, so they're actually responsible for getting together. So we don't like. I think after the whole process, the project has been done, is that we don't sort of intervene in terms of now maintaining the toilets. So they are responsible to ensure that if anything breaks, they take it further from there.
Guys, we can't take any more questions. It's due to time, but I think you can maybe ask questions to her if she should still be around for the next few minutes. But Candice, we are very inspired. I think personally, as someone who's doing the kind of job that we are doing in my area, I feel deeply inspired. To say there is somebody or other people somewhere of my age who are actually doing it different in this way. It actually gives me a great feeling. And I think it also, a challenge to us as fellows to know wherever we find ourselves in our areas, we can actually start something, and then get it going. With those words, I would like to say thank you very much for sharing.
Thank you.
And then